And I've got another gimbal video for you guys today. This is on the relatively low-key DJI Osmo Mobile SE. Let's jump into the unboxing, see what we're getting in here, and then you'll get to see what we can actually capture with a smartphone gimbal of this caliber. I will get there. There we go. We've got Create Magnetic Moments. That's a really cool brand slogan. That's really cool. So Create Magnetic Moments. We've got a silicone bag, the usual kind of booklets, manuals, whatever else. And then a really nice bag actually. Like this is a really nice kind of microfiber design bag, just to chuck your gimbal in once it is all folded down. So that's a really nice little touch there. And then as we get into it, each item is individually packaged. So here's the gimbal here, and you can see it's in its folded mode. Probably looks quite familiar to a lot of people. It is the same design, like I said, as the Osmo Mobile 4 SE. I might be wrong, but there's a few others, I believe, that have got a similar kind of design to this guy. The same clamping system that we're used to, and this is that magnetic thing. Get ready. Oof, let's do it again. Oof, it's just satisfying, right? So you flip it up, and it doesn't have the quick launch. Basically, we've got that in the Osmo Mobile 6, so when you flip it up, it automatically powers on. We don't have that feature here on the Osmo Mobile SE, but the same kind of design. I feel like this little joystick wheel, the body here looks slightly different maybe. The housing of it feels a little bit more like it doesn't protrude out as much maybe, the little joystick there. I wonder if that's gonna be something to get used to. But overall, it feels very similar, looks exactly the same as the previous models that I mentioned before. All right, so it looks like we've got some anti-slip pads here. It says, if required, use the anti-slip pads to secure the mobile phone in the phone holder. Don't believe that was in the other unboxing I did, so maybe that was complaints from customers, who knows. And then the other two things we have is the USB-A to USB-C cable. So that's basically how you charge the device, just a USB-C port on the side. And then we've got the good old tripod here. So you screw that into the base there, and then it kind of gives you an extra grip, right? So that means that you can hold it here, hold it here. It also allows you to prop it up if you need to calibrate anything, but I find it handy just to kind of have it as the extra grip. So that's the device fully connected, set up, ready to go. Let's power it on and chuck a phone on top. This guy here is a relatively new release. Not many people are talking about it, but for 159 Australian dollars, this is a really great offering. Pretty much everyone is going to have some form of a smartphone, as opposed to the majority of people who are not going to have a camera system. Now, obviously this isn't everyone in the world, but especially in the Western worlds, a lot of people have smartphones nowadays. So that's why I think smartphone gimbals are such a popular hot item right now. And this guy here is great, 159 Australian dollars. It's got the magnetic design on top that we've seen in previous models. It's a very basic offering here. There's nothing crazy exciting or brand new, but if you've never used a smartphone gimbal before and you're considering getting one, this could be the perfect entry point for you, because it really does just give you everything you need for a smartphone gimbal. So I want to start off with build quality. Now, I've done a bunch of gimbal reviews on the channel in the past, and when we look at the build quality of the Osmo Mobile SE, it is a very basic build, right? It's got quite a plasticky feel to it, but it does feel sturdy and it feels solid, right? There's no major issues with anything feeling flimsy or weak. It does feel like a solid build, and I think because it is more of a plasticky build, that's how they're able to keep the price down as well, right? Like if we think about some of the DSLR gimbals out there, a lot of them are utilizing different types of metals and different kind of alloys and different things. So for them, they're going to be more premium. They're going to feel a lot more kind of sturdy, but to have a plastic build like this actually means that the weight is kept down. And I promise you, if you're going to use a large gimbal, you are going to get over it very quickly. Something like this though, you don't get over it at all. Really, I've been filming for the longest time, just taking it out and explored a whole area for like, what, an hour and a half or so. It wasn't wasn't like my hands were sore. It wasn't like it was, you know, my arms were getting weaker. And it was such an easy experience. And that's where I think it really excels, because the average kind of consumer that would pick this up would be the type of person to go away on a family holiday, or maybe you're going on a trip with your partner and you want to just capture some stable footage as you're exploring some temples or a few different areas. For something like that, this is going to be ideal because it's lightweight, it's compact, nice and easy to like just fold down, put away. You can just chuck it straight in a bag or whatever it may be. And it's just such an easy offering, and the build quality does the job. Now, in terms of the overall performance of the unit itself, so it is great that you can still put your phone in the actual clamping system with the phone case on. I would recommend calibrating the gimbal though, like once you've got it all connected. But the thing that's really cool about this setup here is having this additional tripod on the base here. Basically, I find that to be an extra grip just to hold with your other hand. I find that if I'm just holding with one hand, I do get a little bit more bouncy movements to it. Gimbals are one of those things you just need to get used to the movement, right? It's one of those things where if you walk too fast, if you have janky, awkward movements, the footage isn't going to look great, right? It's probably going to look better than handheld, but it's still not going to look phenomenal. So you need to be really intentional with your movements. You need to get used to how to get the smoothest footage out of your smartphone. But that's where I find having something like this really comes in handy, because you get that additional bracing point there where you can make sure that you're stabilizing as you're walking forward. And then the trigger on the back here, if you press and hold that, there's some clips in this video that will pop up where I've actually pressed and held the trigger. So it's like locked onto one point. And even as I'm walking and I kind of go around a little path, you can see that it just keeps the footage nice and stable, nice and steady. And it's great for situations like that where you want to focus in on a subject or something that you're looking at in the distance. So you can see its boot time is really quick, a couple of seconds, and it's ready to go. I can then double tap to change the orientation. So there's a little flipping option here. The trigger has some different functionality. I will have a separate video to kind of show you how to get the most out of this gimbal system. But I do find that overall, the system is stable and reliable. The motors are great, and they seem to stabilize the footage in pretty much all scenarios. I will say though, in a few scenarios where I actually flipped it upside down and I tried to get the lower shot, so you can see that I can flip it up and it will still utilize all the motors. I did find that this had some kind of bouncy movements, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. Because you've only got the one hand stabilizing it, you're going to get more movement. Now, maybe there's a way that I could kind of hold it like that and hold it down low to get some more stable footage. But I did find that when I had those low angle shots, that's where you did start to notice a bit of the bounce. When you flip it up though, you'll see that it kind of gets it back into its center point. I found that this was relatively reliable and stable in most scenarios when I was holding it. Overall, the motors are powerful enough. I would say that comparing it to some of the higher end gimbals out there, and even looking at like the Osmo Mobile 6, for example, it seems to be a little bit more reliable. And then when you look to like the DSLR gimbals, again, it's going to be more reliable again because it's got a more powerful motors. This does the job though, but occasionally you'll notice that it does kind of bounce a little bit, or occasionally it will sway a little bit. You just really got to get used to it. But for most people, if you're not a stickler, if you're not going to be looking at it and going, oh, there was a bit of movement there, that wasn't smooth enough. If you're just capturing memories, you are probably not going to be even caring about it or even noticing. And this is probably going to be great for most people. So if you are considering picking up the Osmo Mobile SE, it is 159 Australian dollars. You can pick it up from the D1 Store's website. If you're interested in any accessories, items, whatever it may be, you can use the code DANSTube over there to save on a bunch of different items. So definitely check that out if you are interested. But jumping back into the actual product itself, I do find that this is clearly targeted towards beginners. It seems to be the case with DJI where that SE, they put the Mini SE, the Mini 2 SE, right? They've now got the Osmo Mobile SE. In the past, they had the Osmo Mobile 4 SE. The SE seems to kind of be that perfect beginner point. So if you do have a higher end smartphone gimbal, you're probably not going to want this. You know, if you do have a DSLR gimbal and you don't really use your smartphone, it doesn't really make sense for you. I think this is ideal for people who want to travel and explore, maybe go on some holidays, and they just want to capture some content with their smartphone, but they don't think that handheld's going to be good enough. Something like this does the job, right? Because you can track, you can do the pano, you can do the dyna zoom, there's a bunch of other features in there, and it is a really powerful offering for its price point. So when we talk about active track, which is basically when the unit is recognizing a subject and it can track that subject. Now, it doesn't just have to be a person. You can actually have it lock onto an object object, right? Or a tree or whatever it is, and it will focus in on that point. Nice and easy to activate. You just press the trigger once, it will go straight into the tracking mode. You can also put on gesture controls. So if you put up your hand, it will start tracking you. Put it up again, it will stop tracking you. So it is quite intuitive in that sense, but I will say that I did have a few issues with the tracking keeping up with me. Now, I wasn't trying to move too fast, but there were multiple scenarios where the motors would either stop turning, they would get to a point and that was kind of it. It would stop turning with me. Or if I was moving in too close, it would lose me. Sometimes I'd move around a corner, it would lose me. So there were a few scenarios where it was a little bit hit or miss. So you've just got to keep that in mind. It's not the most reliable tracking by any means. I would definitely say there's better options out there if you're looking exclusively for tracking, but it does the job in most scenarios, especially if you are the camera person and you want to track, let's say, you know, you're out with family and you've got your cousin running around exploring whatever, and you know, the family said, oh, can you get some video just for some memories? You can press that trigger and it will focus in on that person, and you as the operator can then see how the tracking's going. In that kind of scenario, it's great. But if you are a one-person show and you're just setting up the unit, trying to track you, you do have to be mindful of, I guess, how much movement you're putting into each scene. Now, there was a cool scene where I was pretending to be like a fitness kind of instructor, and when I was close to the actual unit itself, I found that it did a great job because I could crouch down and it would kind of pan down with me or tilt down with me. If I were to move to the left, it would pan across with me. And in like a nice tight condensed kind of area with not too much going on, it seemed to do a great job when it was just focusing in on me and I wasn't moving too fast. You know, I went between different machines, came back, spoke to the camera. That kind of scenario is great. So I guess you got to think about the application of when you would actually be using tracking and whether it does apply to you. If you do want to do that kind of talking to camera stuff and you just want to have this unit set up and you don't want to have to worry about asking someone to help you, or you don't want to have to constantly move the camera around, then this is a pretty good alternative if you are relatively close to the unit and there's not too much going on. And also if you're not moving too fast, right? Like it's not going to be extremely reliable if you're running straight past the camera. It's probably going to pan and then just stop, right? So just keep that in mind. You've got to be really mindful of your movements. There really isn't too much to a smartphone gimbal. It kind of does what you would expect it to do, right? Like it's got a bunch of different features that you can play around with, a heap of different settings to utilize as well. But if you don't necessarily want to utilize everything for this unit, you literally just want to capture some videos when you're exploring, it does the job, right? Like you've got the joystick here if you want to control the movement of the unit itself. Maybe you want to kind of pan across to see something. You know, you've got the different modes in here, so you can have it like kind of moving with you as you're moving, or you can have it with the tilt lock. So that basically means when you angle up or angle down, it's not going to kind of look up or down with you. It's going to lock that tilting motion. So you can see as I look up or down, it's still keeping that center point, as opposed to the first setting, which we'll just go back to, which is this one here. So as I look up, the unit looks up. As I look down, the unit looks down. So you've got a few different options here. The first setting is basically the full open option where you can move however you want and it will kind of account to whatever you're doing. The trigger itself is a powerful feature, like I've told you. I'll dive into it a bit more in some other videos. But if you do press and hold that, no matter how much I'm moving now, it's going, and I can twist my wrist, right? Move it all around and it's going to be locking into that position. So that's a really good example of how you could use a gimbal if you're focusing in on a subject. Straight when I let go of that trigger, you can see it's got all wobbly movements again. So that's kind of one of the things that I would suggest getting used to. Like I said, you got the tilt lock, you got the FPV mode, which is basically it rolls with your movement. So if you want it to bank with you and make it feel like an FPV drone. And then you've also got the spin shot mode, which basically allows you to capture a really cool movement where it spins around like this. So there are a few different modes, and that's me accessing it through the basic menu system here. I don't have to connect to the app or anything like that. But to really get the most out of this unit, you do have to use the DJI Memo app. There's the DJI Memo app. This is something I'm going to dive into more when I do some more content on this. But the Memo app is great, right? It gives you a bunch of different options. This is where you can enable the gesture controls. This is where you can go between the dyna zoom, whatever they call it, the pano options and whatever else. But this also allows you to utilize the zooming function. So you can use that little dial or toggle, whatever you want to call it. It's probably more of a toggle on the side there to zoom in and out. So you do have that control through the app. You can press the record button and it will record. You can switch the camera from the front to the rear camera. And then you got the trigger as well. So if you double tap that, it will recenter the gimbal. A bunch of different little things that you can do with this unit. Overall, for a gimbal system, it does kind of what it advertises, right? Like it keeps footage stable for you. It gives you a few different options to kind of have some fun and create some fun moments with family or friends. It does the job, and for $159, you really can't go wrong, right? Even if you use it a couple of times, it's only 159 Australian dollars, so it is a bargain for what you're getting. And if you've never used a gimbal before, this is probably the one to start with because it's such a great great price point, and it does give you some great features. Even having Active Track 5.0, even though I mentioned that at times it would kind of fail on me, in most scenarios it's great. And for most people out there in your workflow or in your kind of exploration, in your adventures that you're going on, this is going to do the job, right? Perfect for hiking, perfect for traveling, whatever else. And it is such an easy system, especially having that magnetic system, because straight when I power it down like this, let's say that we're going into a new location and they don't want us to have filming equipment out, you just power it down, disconnect that. That's literally just a magnet that clicks back on as so. So you disconnect that, you can leave it on your phone with the little clamp, put that straight in your pocket, fold this unit down, it will kind of lock into its position. And now this can just go into your backpack, purse, whatever, and then you can unfold it again and start filming. So it's a nice, easy workflow. And for most people, you're gonna love it, right? So check it out. Let me know your thoughts. I'll have some more content on the channel and I will chat to you in the next one. Peace.